Welcome back to Subversive Preacher. My name is Cameron Miller. This is a reflection for the 6th Sunday after Pentecost. Now, I cannot take away your anguish, and you cannot end mine. We're not Jesus. But I can allow you to touch me, and you can invite me to touch you. That is this whole sermon in a nutshell. So if you want to go get a book or a cup of coffee and tune back in 10 minutes, you can hear the music at the end of the video. But if you stay, I am going to tell you how I got to that conclusion. Chronic illness is a beast, a wild animal guarding the entrance of our thoughts and menacing the access to our hearts. Chronic illness is always with us. It is relentless. Whether it's managed cancer or unmanaged mental disease, a tenuously managed eating disorder, or just a back issue. If it's chronic, it's relentless. And you see how I did that, right? It's just a back issue. That's one of the ways that we minimize whatever it is that hangs on around us, weighing us down. We don't let others know, in part because we don't want to acknowledge how relentless its presence is ourselves and what a beast it is. Because of our technology, which has given us the ability to treat what we cannot cure, I'm guessing that just about anyone who has crossed the Rubicon of middle age begins to be aware of a chronic condition. Living with a chronic condition with a stigma inflames the beast. Not only does it need to be private, now it must be held secret. Substance abuse and the codependency that haunts its family members, when kept a painful secret, is even more corrosive and difficult to recover from. Depression and anxiety are funded, given even greater dark power when forced to live inside of a secret. When sealed inside the lonely envelope of the self, diseases and pain and anguish scream. But there's only one person who hears those screams. Hiding things, keeping them secret for good, bad, or even silly reasons, makes them all the more painful, debilitating, and powerful. You know this. I know you do. Hidden things are isolating. When we're hurting and we do not want people around us to know it, our privacy forms this kind of layer of distance around us. We grow a second skin, a kind of a dead skin that touch doesn't penetrate. And here's the absurd, mind-bogglingly stupid thing about our decision to go classified with our hurt or pain or disorder. Tender, loving care from other people is precisely what we need, not isolation. Instead of growing a second dead skin that seals us off, we need the touch of others to remind us that we're not alone. We need the presence of others to sit with us so that our pain is not suffering in isolation. Now, I mention all this because I suspect everyone within the sound of my voice has some secret or guarded hurt, struggle, condition, shame, or sorrow that we hold inside and will not share. If you don't have hurt like that, well, good for you. But your stellar health and your incredible wholeness will make understanding this story from the Gospel of Mark very difficult. Let me just say that we have entered a long stretch of stories from Mark that anyone who has been going to church for any length of time has heard more than once. So welcome to the preacher's dilemma. Is there any juice we can wring from these stories? My only hope is that if there's not something new, there's something worth being reminded of. So the woman with a 12-year hemorrhage is the poster child for chronic illness with a stigma. Her social isolation is nearly complete. In that society, in that culture, and in that moment in history, to be a woman was to be totally vulnerable. If you were an unmarried woman without a family, you were destitute. No social safety net. Nothing. You were nothing. The fact that we don't know her name, but we do know Jairus' name, tells us all we need to know about this story. As the leader of a congregation, Jairus had status. As a male in that society, he had even more status. And whatever else he did or was, Jairus had enough power and enough influence that Mark thought it was important to remember him by name. Now, not many characters with cameo appearances in the gospel are mentioned by name. The fact that we know Jairus by name makes the namelessness of the hemorrhaging woman all the more pronounced. This woman, if ever she was married, had probably been abandoned because she was considered unclean, and she made everyone around her unclean. To sit in the same chair she'd been sitting in, even to sit on the same spot on the grass or the dirt or the dust where she had been sitting, was to make oneself unclean, impure. No one could touch her without being made impure. Literally, she was untouchable. Now we know what isolation feels like, even if it's self-imposed. To wrap ourselves in private suffering numbs us to the touch of others. But the woman with the hemorrhage, she had no choice. She was untouchable. She was nameless. She was nothing. Jairus, on the other hand, he was something, and he was in a complete crisis mode. And we all remember that panic, especially when it's a child who is suddenly in pain or in danger, and especially if it's your child. You move heaven and earth to fix, protect, or save that child. His 12-year-old daughter was struggling for breath. And as if things couldn't get worse, his pain and his fear and his anguish collided with an untouchable's relentless pain and fear and anguish. Jesus stops, and Jairus' panic balloons into an elephantine beast. "What are you doing, Jesus? My daughter's dying. Hurry, please, just hurry." He looks around at the crowded street, Jesus does, knowing that someone has touched him deeply and that he, without intention, has touched someone else. Now, I know I've said this before, and it isn't a new thought or hope, and in fact, it has been repeated often by me, and perhaps by you. But I like to imagine that your anguish and mine touch at the altar. And if not at the altar, at the pulpit. You bring your anguish here, at least I hope you do, and stand up and open your hands in a vulnerable gesture, where your anguish is greeted by my anguish, and together we share the bread of affliction that is the same bread our ancestors have eaten. At least those of us who participate in this ritual meal we call the Eucharist. It's no accident that those ancients called it the bread of affliction. It's the bread we place our anguish in to be kneaded and mixed with the anguish of all those others with whom we share community. Then we ask God to bless it and to heal us as we consume it. Now, I can't take away your anguish, and you cannot end mine. We're not Jesus. But I can allow you to touch me, and you can invite me to touch you. If we have created a safe space here or in those communities by which you participate in, we can remove that second skin that we wrap ourselves in and muster the courage to face each other with open hands. The wounds that hurt the most are chronic. They can be treated but not cured. And the only way that they can be treated is by touch. Allowing others to touch our wounds with their wounds. And with the loving kindness born of shared woundedness, we will know healing. It may not cure us because our conditions, our wounds, are chronic, but it will heal us. And to my way of thinking, that's enough. And by the way, I think that is what, at its best, church is about, a spiritual community. Some people believe or want the church to somehow address or fix the wrongs of society or proclaim the right beliefs about religion. I don't, not so much. I'm not sure that we can fix anything given the frailty of spiritual community. But we can offer community. And in my life, when and where church has been most powerful, it's when it's been healing, when it's been a healing community. In the touching and the being touched, our chronic wounds and illnesses are made tolerable and sometimes even healed. When that happens, our compassion is activated, and it's activated in a new and ever-increasing way. And then we can do some really big things. But it all begins and requires that we touch and be touched. Thank you for being here with me.